Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. So in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make a decorative napkin ring. Now, this decorative napkin ring is in conjunction with our guide to 10 hand-forged Christmas gifts for selling this season. It is an ebook that Jessica and I have written, and we've done it there so this way we can help your guys' businesses grow and be able to sell some products to be able to have fun and support your kids and your family this holiday season. Now, you don't have to get this ebook if you're looking to sell stuff, but it is a great resource to people who are trying to take and sell blacksmithing work for a living, as it has all the SEO stuff figured out for you, cost breakdowns of how many hours you're looking at, the cost of the material, and you know, the approximate sell price and profit that you can make from each item. So, it's a really good ebook loaded with a bunch of free templates and 10 other hand-forged items. So this is one of 10 hand-forged items. The playlist should be linked up right here, and if you go down in the description down below, you can go check out the ebook that's available for download and digital purchase at blacksmithpdfs.com. So, without further ado, let's get into it here. So what I'm doing here is I basically just started doing some decorative work on the banding portion. Now this is completely optional, you don't have to add this, but this adds value to the piece. What you need is you need a piece that will be, and all the measurements are, the starting stock sizes are in the ebook here, but you need a piece to start off at 5 inches, or just a little over, about 5.5 inches or so is what we're going to start with, and it's going to be 1 inch wide. So just so for those who are looking for it. So probably about, I think that's 125 millimeters that you'll have by 25 millimeters by 1/8 inch or 3.5 millimeters. That's the starting stock size. After that, as you saw previously, I was just chiseling some lines in here and giving it some hash marks. I saw this technique done over at John Switzer at Black Bear Forge. I'll put a link right there to his channel if you want to go check him out, and I believe he was doing a decorative fire poker that he did with this type of thing. I thought it looked really Nordic and really cool, so I thought it would look real nice doing this as well. So what I just came out and did here is I used an eyeball punch. This is a 1/4 inch round eyeball punch to leave some round bald depressions here, and it ended up looking pretty darn good. So now we're going to heat this back up, and I'm going to continue on this process, and before we cut it off, I'll start to roll this up into a ring, but we won't close it completely when we actually work on the poinsettia portion. That'll be over here. The poinsettia portion is made from 20 gauge sheet metal, and it is just cut out. So that's all you have to do for that. And you know, you just form it into a poinsettia. We'll get to that here in just a minute. So stick with me, guys. We'll get this good and hot, and we will see where we are at. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with this eyeball punching here. Right on down the way. You got to move quick. Eyeball punches like to have really nice big hot heat. Got to hit it hard and go to town. And we're not trying to drive this all the way through to where it'll cut out the back side. We're just trying to drive this down to where it makes a good, nice, rounded depression. Just like so. Now, one thing I didn't mention before I went to doing this process, and I'd like to mention it now. You need to think about symmetrics here. So I've got a center punch mark in the center of all these hash marks, and then I've got equally spaced items to each side. This will just come out to making a much better looking napkin ring when we roll this up. This center portion will be punched, or we'll have a drill hole. We will drill that out to accept a rivet. So we can put a rivet through there. That way we can rivet on our poinsettia blank onto that. Hopefully you guys can see that. I forgot to mention that the template for this poinsettia blank here is actually in the ebook itself. Later on, I do, however, plan on including all the templates that I've done in all of these hand-forged projects basically in a one kind of disc set or one digital download, and it'll be a bundle of all the templates that I offer for various things like flowers and roses and all sorts of stuff like that. But that'll be a little later on down the future. Until then, if you want them, you'll have to just go over and check out the website with the guide to 10 hand-forged Christmas gifts. Okay, so we got that done. Now it's time to take and roll this up. It's going to be real simple. We're just going to roll it over the edge and start getting it to come back on ourselves. And once we get it so far, we'll just trim it off right there, and that'll be good for right now. Okay, so now that we've got that bent around, we're going to go over a little hardy bick here, and we're just going to square up or round up the joint a little bit. Now, you don't want to go crazy with this when you're hammering on this. You know, we're just wanting to form this. We're not trying to forge this. So, you know, don't beat the ever-loving tarnation out of it. I know it's a habit to do that, but you just want to be careful that you don't. You'll regret it, trust me. Oh, line those up a little bit, and then take some of the bow out of that. Take some of that squareness out. Clean this up. We just need a little more roundness in this piece here. Again, you want this to form just right. Now, this is a point that I should mention about the size here. Now, this is for a fairly large napkin. Okay, this is for a fairly large napkin bundle, something that you would see at kind of a banquet hall where it'd be a pretty good size deal. And this is the size that I'm working with for this. Now, this might sell very well, again, to a customer that would be at a banquet hall. If you need a smaller ring, just reduce the dimensions. Now, I would suggest not to make your dimensions any smaller than about 4 inches. 4 inches would be what I would be considered the absolute minimum starting size to get a decent sized napkin ring. You can always go up from there, and then you can always trim a little off. So just be cognizant of that. So anyways, there we are. There we have it. This ring is completely formed up, nice and tidy. You have a couple options with the seam. You can weld the seam up, or you can just leave the seam. I personally like just leaving the seam. It's really not a big deal. By the time you're done welding it and grinding it, it's just kind of a pain. Plus, it'll help to get the rivet in and, you know, dress this thing up a little bit later if you don't weld up the seam, because if you need to reopen this, you know, it can become a bit of a problem. So again, just do it how you would like, but that's how I do the napkin rings. So now we're going to drill that later on, but we are going to move on to our actual poinsettia piece itself. After you have cut out this shape out of a piece of 20 gauge sheet metal, now we're going to take and form this. Now you've got a couple design choices here that you can go with. You can go with just a straight chiseled line. That's what I'm going to do here, and I'm just going to form it into a wood block, and I'll reset the camera and I'll show you that. And we'll actually do that cold. We don't need to do that hot here. This can be easily bent cold and stuff, so we'll form that cold, and then we'll get it hot to give it a little extra scale and stuff, so it's, you know, it's not shiny and it looks a little more forged that way. Same thing here, I'm just doing a simple chisel mark. You can add file marks, you can add flutes, you can do whatever you want, get as decorative as you like. I would say that sometimes simplicity with everything else that's going on with this ring would be best, because it's going to look quite striking with the poinsettias on top and the band itself. It's already going to have quite a bit of visual interest. If you do a basic band, I would do a little fancier poinsettia. If you're going to do a fancy if you're going to do a fancy band, it's a little simpler poinsettia. That would be what I would go for. So I'm going to get reset up, and we will go ahead and fuller this in. Okay, so I've got basically just an old oak block sitting up here, and I'm going to be using a cold chisel, an old cold chisel that I've kind of rounded off the sharpness a little bit. It's still a sharp chisel, but I kind of rounded it off a bit. This is going to go pretty simple. All we're going to do is just set it directly down on the surface of the wood, put our chisel on our line that we've already pre-drawn, and we're just going to give it one big hammer blow down. We might give it another, and that's it. So that's going to give us a little bit of a line there. That's cool. That's what we want. We're going to go ahead and do that to all the rest of these. Same place. If you can hit it hard enough, you can do it in one go. And you want it to kind of hit it hard enough that it actually kind of folds up. Whenever you're working with metal work like this, sheet metal, you're trying to give it some form and some rigidness. And the way that we give it rigidness is by kind of fold forming it, or cross breaking it, if you will. And as you can see, that's already got kind of a nice shape to it. So there's the veins on the back side. That's all well and fine. We'll set that one off the side. Go on to the next one. Again, like I said, the template for this is available. The template for these poinsettias here will be available in the ebook. And eventually they will be available to everyone for download when I put together the whole kit at some point. Go like this. Alright. We've hit it hard, struck it hard enough for all those to give it a little bit of hammer form. That's good. So when we stick these two things together and we put them on a diagonal, they ought to look quite striking. So again, we're not done yet. We're gonna take and throw this whole thing in the fire, heat these up a little bit, and then we're just gonna kind of lightly tap around on them a little bit just to give them a little extra expression. We will also do that on the wood block. We'll do that on the wood block, but we won't use a metal hammer for this. We'll actually use a small little wooden mallet. So let me get these hot and I'll be right back with you. Remember, this is sheet metal, so it doesn't take that long to get your heat. We're going to tap it from the back side, and that's going to create a little back roll on the sheet metal for us, all natural, and that works just fine. Tap it down the center, and voila. That's given that a little bit of form and a lot more visual interest now that it's had some forged scale on it. Give it a little brushing. There you go, you guys can see a little bit of that going on. Grab this other one in out of here. Gonna do the same thing. We're just hammering it down ever so lightly. That'll flatten out those sharp edges that we're pointing straight up. And make it look a little more petal-like. And we'll tap back down the center again of our bloom. I'm just using kind of the corner of this mallet to give it a little more shape. And there you have it. Those are basically done. You can leave as much scale on it or texture as you like. You can get rid of most of that. You can wire wheel it if you want after this point. Really, sky's the limit, up to you. But we'll move on to the next point. We'll move on to the next part. Just want to show you how cool those look together. You really start seeing it come together now. Once just a little bit of forming is done on these, you can really see those starting to really come together. So now on to the fun part. The fun part, our rings have cooled down now. Now we'll lock this up. I'll drill this off camera and we'll come back and we will rivet those to this. Okay, so I have my hole drilled through this. I have my rivet in from underneath. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'm going to set that on the horn of the anvil. If you don't have a square horn, you can do this on the round horn of your anvil, or just a piece of bar stock locked in the vise. We're going to take our bigger blank, we're going to put it on first, then we're going to take our smaller blank, make sure it's at a diagonal from the bigger blank, and then we're going to use a monkey tool. A monkey tool is nothing more than a piece of mild steel rod with a hole drilled through it. Now, it doesn't go all the way through, it's just drilled in there about an inch or so, just so this way it doesn't bottom out. We're going to use this monkey tool to drive our blanks down flush to the ring itself. Once we have that done, I'm going to grab a small cross peen hammer while holding the blanks. Hopefully you guys can see this just fine. And I'm going to start to peen. You want to use light peens at first, just to get the material to move, where you start catching that material so it can't slide up. Then we're going to use the flat of the peen, still holding the ring. I'm going to hold it from underneath in this case. And give it a nice clean peen, just like that. And just like that, voila, your napkin ring is about done. Now, you can take and bend these petals however you like. You bend them up a little bit, give them a little more shape. If you want with a heating torch, I like to use a pair of scrolling tongs for this. They're great for that little after bend, after effect, just to give it a little more shape. You can possibly make this out of a thicker gauge material, and in some cases that can be advisable if you want it to be a little more robust, but again, just use your own discretion on that. Now, I'm going to go clean this up and we're going to put the final finish on it. Now for the finish of this, since this is kind of going to come in contact with stuff like food grade things, I would suggest using something like a cooking oil finish of some kind. Something that's preferably a little allergy friendly maybe. So you're not, not peanut oil or something like that where somebody might get an allergic reaction to it. Especially if you're selling this to a customer or client. So again, just ask them what they want it coated with. Worst case scenario, you can do it with like a Rust-Oleum finish. But obviously that's not the healthiest thing in the world to have, is a Rust-Oleum finish touching your food. But leave that up to the customer. That way they can make that final judgment call of what's going to work best for their customers. But just like that, you've got yourself one heck of a napkin ring. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. I'll go over and wire wheel it real quick, and I'll be right back with you, and we will put the final little color on it and call it good at that. Now this doesn't take long. Again, you're working with small material here, and it doesn't have to be that hot in order for the brass to actually start sticking. So just keep that in mind. You know, you want it to be in a dead fire or a fire that is not running. You don't want air blast to this. We're not trying to get this thing to scale up. We just removed all the scale. We're just trying to take and put some color on this piece. So I've got that heated up. That's kind of heat blued. It's starting to blue on the blanks itself. And now I'm going to start kind of giving it just a little bit of a brassing as I go here. I'm the type, I like to do it on just the edges. Just the edges. I don't like the whole flower or the whole bloom or whatever. To take and be brass, you know. I'm not trying to make steel look like brass. I'm trying to highlight the steel. The gorgeousness of the steel itself is what we're trying to accomplish here. So we got some colors there. I'm going to lay this face down for a second in the fire just to help encourage colors on that front leaf. I'm checking it. It doesn't take long. The easier way to do this is if you've got a torch. And there you go. It's kind of bronzed now. And to me, that's good enough. Give it a little more brass brushing. Let that kind of blue up a little bit. And then I'm going to quench it real quick in some water. Just to keep it from going any further. You don't want to take and totally soak it with water. We want this to still be able to steam off. So this way it doesn't rust. We don't want it to rust before we can get our method of choice on there. This is where I say like oil it. You either oil it with a food grade oil or you can coat it with a lacquer of some kind. I'll put this back in the fire for a second. Just a few, just to dry off all that moisture off the steel. Just to get it hot enough that it bakes some of that off. And there you have it. One napkin ring for a client or a stocking stuffer or a gift or anything like that. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to leave that like. If you like this video, share it around to some friends. Always greatly appreciate that kind of support from our community. I really enjoyed making these 10 different hand-forged Christmas gifts for everyone, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed this journey and process as well. Again, I'll remind anybody that you might want to check out our website, blacksmithpdfs.com. We got loads of great stuff over there, everything from power hammer plan bundles to all sorts of templates and all sorts of good stuff over there, from ebooks to you name it. Just go give it a check out if you like, if you would like to. Also, if you like to see behind the scenes stuff, Instagram is a great place to follow me to get some behind the scenes look into what I'm doing when I'm not producing videos. Without further ado, I'm going to get back to forging. God bless you all. You all have a Merry Christmas, and we will catch you on the next one.